All right, welcome back. So we're going to be picking up and implementing error handling in the module that we just created for Allie.Chat commands for client usage. So the way that this is constructed is that I have one base service commands, right, which holds our reference here to the web API, and then I have individual ones for WebSocket and TCP because they have similar providers, but then different parameters for different client application types. So these things, this WebSocket client AC, is written in an Allie.Chat WebSocket, and if I need to modify it, then I have to go into the other package, which is already on NuGet. But if I look inside of WebSocket connection, this class, connection event args, is a base class for each of these types. So you can see that here if I look at TCP. TCP here. If I look at this, here, same thing. Here's the base class. So what we're going to do is I'm going to code in on my module here for core. I want to have an event called A. And if I look at my events, this is coming from base event args. So if I look at this and did a command event handler, I think it's going to be a different class. Because this needs to come from using phs.core. Right? It has a reference to the web API, which I thought would have a reference to core. Just goes to Allie.Chat lib, which doesn't have core. So this one needs to have it. So we're going to add in a new package here. I wonder why it keeps blipping. You guys see the blipping, right? And then I want to add phs.core. And then I want to call this a connection event. Now this is going to tell me that this can't be used in this type. So if I was to look at this, this all comes from base args. So I can look at my command event handler and I can have a new delegate task called a hold on. We want to say it's not a controller, is it? It's a like that, and it's going to be an object of sender, which is going to be this type of args. Come on. Where my T is this. And I want this to be it's going to be the thing that's controlling what connects you. So I want to say it's a client event handler. So this is a client event handler. And then we also want to have one for error event args. Okay? And so now in base services here, I need to have my connection and error event. So when I look at my on message event, this gets invoked from my TCP client here in Connect. And I have two, one in TCP auth and one in commands TCP. Yeah. So here we're going to have a TCP client.error event. And we're going to have an on-error event. And then I want to add that to my dispose. Ooh, it's here under disconnect. A little sloppy there. Okay. Just a second. Just a second, because I don't have this on the base class because, come on, doc. What in the hell? So I didn't have that on the base class because you have it here with this generic iMessage type, and this one is not generic. This is for this. So back over in here where we have my connect, I'm going to move these two methods down to here. I'm going to change this to be a protected virtual task and a protected virtual task. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it. So I'm going to make a new object for this. No, I'm going to do this lazily. So on this, so on here, what I need to do is have my events. So it's a public, and it was called a client event handler of a connection event args called a connection event. And then I need to have another one here for the error event args. Now here we're going to do a error event, and if it's not null, then we're going to invoke this sender and a new error event args, which is a, and I think I can just literally pass in args. And I'm going to do the same thing here for this one, which is my connection event. Looks good. Okay, we need to rinse and repeat this over on the WebSocket one. So that's in WebSocket auth. Hold on, is that where I was at? No, you're in base commands. So you also need to have it on this one, right? Yeah. So let's do this one next. So this makes me think that we want to have a, just a second. It makes me think that I want to move this onto my base command service. So it wouldn't work with all of it. It would work with these two. So we have to be consistent. So we'll call these private events. Okay, and then we need to have them down here as a connection event and a error event. And it's a client event handler of a connection event args. And this is a error event args. And this is a connection event. And this is an error event. Okay, we need to move this here to be a fire connection event. And it's going to be a connection event args. And this will be a connection event. And then you're also going to have a fire error event, passing in an error event args. Okay. And so now that you have those set up here, you can have your fire error event and do sender and args. The same thing here. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is on the WebSocket auth base class, we want to add in here a connection event. Just a second. I wonder if I can do this Yeah, I didn't think that would work. Does it? That would cut off a lot of code if you could just do it and just pass them right through, but we'll do that on the next project. We'll just do this as a plus equals to on connection event. And then we can do a client.error event. Because you should be able to do something like, well, no, because you're translating these into different events. Okay, so we're going to set these things to be protected. And then we're going to do a fire error event of my sender and my args and return task.completed. And this one is going to be fire connection event of my sender and args. And then on disconnect, we need to remove those. And rebuild it. And now we're done. We successfully have our events and our connection events and our area events percolating up. So that's great. Okay, let me now say that what we want to have is, hold on, I have a list over here. Okay, we did that. One thing that I need to have is these things need to be wrapped up here. So in WebSocket here, and in commands, this has a dependency on TCP and WebSocket, but it doesn't do anything. So we're going to add in a new class here, and I'm going to call this AC commands, and we'll make this public. And so in here, we want to have one of these different types that's getting created and then controlled. So if I look at my type here, the first thing I have is in core, I have a base command service. So I want to have a protected read-only base command service. So call it a I command service. And we're going to call this service. Okay, and so when we construct this thing, I want to have an enumerator in here. So we'll just say for temporary purposes, enum, and this is going to be called client type. And here we can have a TCP or WebSocket. Okay, we also want to have a class here, a struct called parameters. So it'll be a interface called iParameters and we're going to say that we have a client type called client type. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to switch on that service type on my parameters dot client type. Okay, so if it's TCP, then now when I look at this iParameters, we want to extend my iParameters that already exists. So we're going to say that this is IAC parameters. And here we're going to have a protected read-only IAC parameters called parameters. And we want this to extend iParameters. And so in here I want to say now my service is equal to a new, and we are calling it commands TCP, which has my new iParameters token in it. So that needs to be parameters. And if it's WebSocket, then we're going to do service equals new commands WebSocket, which is also going to be parameters. So I'm going to move this to be a new class called enums. And then in here, we're going to make a new class, a new folder called interfaces. And then I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call this IAC parameters. And we actually want this to be an interface, so we'll move this. Okay. Okay, and now all we're going to do is percolate our events up. So we can do this very simply by doing we can look at this, copy these, bring them in here, turn these into publics. And then after this has been done, we're going to say throw new exception, client type is not accepted. Okay, and so here we're going to do a service dot connection event plus equals to connection event. And we're just going to go through each of these and go through them. Error event, command Discord event, command event, command TCP event, command WebSocket event, and command Twitch event. Okay. And this has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks good. Okay, we also want to have a disposal function on this. So we want to do a public virtual void dispose. And so now if my service is not equal to null, then we can take these and we can just do a find and replace on that to this one. And then we can do a service.dispose. And that's it. Okay, we're going to pump out an interface for this, like that. And that's it for this one. So we have one more to do, which is for auth. Just a second. Because the parameters includes the token, and you set the token, so they're very different. Just one more second here. But do you want this one to roll all of that into it? So I think so. So we'll get rid of this project. And we'll get rid of this. We don't need it. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to have another set of parameters now. We're going to name this first one token. And the second one just IAC parameters. which means that this one could be inheriting from IAC parameters and iParameters token. Which means that you can have another set in here, which is just called parameters. That looks perfect. And this is going to be a new TCP. And now you need to switch on the provider type, right? So over on your interfaces or enumerators, we want to have another one on here, which is for your client application type. And you have implicit, auth code, RO password, and PKCE. And so we need to have one more now called IAC parameters auth. Okay, and on this one, we want to have the client application type called client application type. Now, I don't really like this AC parameters, so I'm going to dump this. I want to have client type on this one and client type on this one. And I'll do it like this to keep it really simple. Like that. Now, it's telling me that I don't have a base class for this. I don't want to be able to create... I wish I didn't do that. Okay, we'll just get rid of this and do an IBase parameter, IAC parameters base. We'll leave client type on here. See, what I don't want you to do is pass in a, yeah, that'll work, okay? And then we'll do this one. And then that one. So this is IAC parameters base. like that. So that one's right. This is the one that's wrong. So what I want to do now is I want to switch on my parameters dot client application type. And if it's implicit, I want to do a service is equal to a. And when I look at this, it's a. Come on, where are you? I'm in TCP auth. We don't support implicit. We only support auth code, RO password, and PCE. So it's going to be service is equal to new commands TCP auth code. And I need to add in here a reference to the TCP auth and WebSocket auth. Now this thing wants me to have parameters auth code in it. That means that to do this, you're going to need to have each one of your types. So we can get rid of this. This is bad. Why did it start? We can get rid of this switch. And instead, because I only have these three types, I have AC parameters token, AC parameters auth code, AC parameters auth auth PKCE, and the last one is auth RO password. AC parameters auth code. And that's also going to extend the parameters auth code. Like that. This one's going to be extending parameters auth PKCE. Okay, this one's going to be doing parameters auth RO password. Like that. Okay, so now that we have that done, we actually will have a couple of different constructors. For some weird reason, you're not listed on my following live channels, even though I followed you for a long time. Just saw you listed on the Science and Tech. Huh. That's weird. How are you? Yeah, I've been going for a while today. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to have this parameters auth code. AC parameters auth RO password. Another one for parameters auth because this one is supposed to be PKCE. Okay. And now what I can do is I can say that this one is a service equals new commands TCP auth code, which is going to be my parameters. And then we can say this one is my service equals new commands WebSocket auth code of my parameters. Okay, this one here is going to be a service equals new commands TCP auth PKCE with my parameters. And this one, my service is my new commands WebSocket PKCE of my parameters. Finally, this one here is a service is equal to my new commands TCP auth RO password of parameters. And this one's going to be for WebSocket. And then finally, we have ours for if it's a token. That's it. That's our whole AC commands class here. With our 4 constructors, everything's totally expandable, which is nice. Extendable, pardon me. Okay, and now what I need to do is I need to create those interfaces into classes. That's weird. That's weird, Fisoon. I remember you too. That's weird. It does flicker. I gotta figure out why it's flickering. Okay, so now we need to create our models for this. And we only have a few of these. So the first one is a AC parameters token. And we're doing these as structs. And then we can just implement this. And we can just change all of these to be a get and a set. Okay, the next one that we need to do is for auth code. And here we're going to implement it. And then we'll do this thing again. Like that. We have to do one for PKCE. Oh, it looks like I did that one badly. Okay, and the last one here is RO password. So that looks good. And everything is interfaced out on that. And so now I think what we're going to do is push this out to NuGet.